It was in my parents' house in the bedroom. Yeah, and I later moved out to San Francisco, where I still live. But yeah, it was just like I didn't even have a computer. I just borrowed their computer.
Really?
Yeah, I just really wanted to do this thing, and then yeah, I
Mashable
headed
was
off
started
to
on your parents' computer?
yeah,
That's awesome.
yeah, because I didn't have one.
Yeah, that's great.
So I started Mashable when I was like 19, living in Aberdeenshire in Scotland, a little rural town called Banchory, and I wanted to get into technology. I saw it really taking off, and you know these websites like MySpace suddenly springing up, and millions of people joining them, and it seemed like a really exciting movement. I'd always been excited about the web. I didn't really have many opportunities where I was from. I didn't really know anyone who worked in the web or worked in technology. So I started up a blog, just installed a WordPress on a server and started writing. And people started reading it, and they started commenting, and they started emailing me about it. And you know, I suddenly realized that actually this could be my job in technology versus trying to be my entryway to getting into it. Yeah, I was straight out of school. I'd like been sick a couple years in school, so I just actually finished high school. I'd like come back and done a couple years, and I felt really behind, and didn't really want to go to university, and didn't really have any opportunities to do anything, because I wasn't qualified in anything. So, but I was really passionate about writing. I was really passionate about technology. So I started doing what was natural, which was just set up a blog, start writing about tech, and hopefully at some point maybe I'll get to actually do tech as a full-time thing. So Mashable is, you know, so firstly I wanted to start off with something kind of generic, because I didn't really know what I wanted to do, and I wanted to leave it open-ended. So I didn't want to be like, you know, webstartupreviewsite.com or something. I didn't want to be so specific that suddenly I'm like, okay, now I want to cover something else, what do I do? And I had kind of a broad range of interests beyond technology, so I wanted something generic. But it was also an era where there was like the web mashups were happening, so it was all about combinations of websites. You know, people were creating, Flickr was really, really popular and remains really popular for image sharing, and people were taking Google Maps and mashing it up with Flickr and posting the photos, the Flickr photos on a map to show where they were all from, that kind of thing, where it was very much about recombining. It still happens with things like Twitter, where people build applications, or they mix in, or Facebook Connect, where they mix in Facebook's social graph with other features. So it was very much about, okay, what happens when the web is completely open and we start combining all these different things together? Can we create something newer? And that's really where the name come from. But obviously, we expanded massively beyond just, you know, the mashups trend. I didn't know anything. I wasn't under the illusion that I knew anything. I really knew nothing, and I would just consume information. Like I would just subscribe to all the business blogs and all the tech blogs and anything I could find, because I had no clue. And every time I did something, it was really just a first time doing it. And I think the biggest barriers are very much when it comes to like paperwork and legal, and like, okay, now I have to have a company, and now I need to have a company in the US and take my UK company and turn it into a US corporation, and I need to get a corporate lawyer, and I need to get, you know, and then I needed to get my visa so that I could go to the US and hire US people and figure out the US tax system and all that kind of stuff. So when you're doing that for the first time, and you know that if you get it wrong, you're really in big, big legal trouble, then
yourself.
Yeah, then it's kind of, it's a little bit intimidating. And those were the real challenges where I, you know, just kind of jumped in with 2 feet and just said, okay, I hope this is right and it works out. I didn't really have any expectations when I started up. I rarely go in with, you know, high expectations. I just try and do the best that I can do and see where I end up. So I didn't feel like there was significant risk at the time. I guess, you know, when you think about it, that maybe there is a certain amount of risk in not getting an education and not actually trying to learn a career, because if that one thing that you've bet everything on falls through, then you're kind of screwed.
Right.
But I didn't really sense that at the time. I just thought, hey, this is the thing I really want to do. I'm passionate about it. I think there was a lot of doubt at that time that blogs could make money. There wasn't really, like you could have AdSense on your blog, but there weren't really ad networks to sell ads. Everyone said that blogs were kind of a fad and that they weren't going to catch on. So in some sense, the market was essentially saying, no, this isn't worth doing. That was a great thing for me, because there wasn't anyone else doing it, really. There was very few other blogs setting up at that time doing the same thing. I think it's probably when I saw my first ad, because again, when you start this thing, you think, well, this is kind of a hobby and I want to get a real job at some point. And I was trying to do like consulting on the side and trying to make money off it. You know, I'd like charge $50 for half an hour to like speak to a startup about what all the other startups were doing in the space and how they could compete. But the first time I really realized that this was probably going to take off was someone came to me and said, hey, we want to like buy an ad on Mashable. And I'm like, well, maybe they're going to pay me like $50 or something. They were like, yeah, like $3,000, is that enough? And I was like, okay, sure, that'll pay my bills for a bit. So, you know, and I started, that was really the turning point from going from, okay, this is my personal blog to, all right, I have advertising, what am I going to do? And I started hiring people. I started saying, well, I can take as much as possible of that and put it towards building up a big team of writers. And, you know, it was kind of one by one. It was like, it took a long time as well. I think it was at least 18 months to 2 years before I could actually start hiring people, which is a heck of a long time for a startup. Yeah, it was just me for years. And in the editorial, it was me for maybe 3 to 4 years. I was doing writing heavily and was, you know, the writer that was writing the most. So it takes a long time as well to transition and to try and put people in the right roles, especially if you don't know anyone. I mean, if you know people, it's easy because you say, okay, I worked with this guy before, he's awesome. But, you know, it's really a learning process where you're trying to figure out, well, how do you replace yourself and how do you move up the ladder and bring in people who are competent or more competent than you, hopefully, to take over some of the day-to-day role. Because it's all about, you know, what motivates entrepreneurs to some degree is the control of controlling your own destiny, of deciding your own fate, and you know, it is a kind of a control instinct, and that's why entrepreneurs go out on their own and don't, you know, go and work for someone else, because they kind of resist authority figures to some extent. So when you're talking about trying to give up control and trying to delegate, it is a kind of a challenging process. It's especially challenging for an editorial organization because people really judge you based on the tone or on, you know, the attitude or the angle you take. So you really need to be very careful to select people who are cultural match. We didn't want people who were going to go out and, you know, create false conflicts. We're going to go out and attack people and try and get page views that way. We didn't want, you know, we didn't want a negativity to the brand, and we also wanted, you know, to maintain quality because people are pretty tough on scrutinizing editorial publications. Even the very best of them, people will say, well, you know, I saw an article in this newspaper is going downhill because it's terrible and I disagreed with this article and whatever. So, you know, people are pretty critical of editorial organizations when they do change their tone. So, yeah, it's doubly challenging when you're trying to maintain a certain tone, a certain outlook, a certain angle in the news. Well, I really enjoy my work. Like I think, you know, I'm really just most excited and most passionate when I'm working on things. I don't even consider it work as such. I just consider it like I really love the web. I love being on the web. I mean, who doesn't love, you know, all these new tools, Facebook and Twitter, and connecting with people online? And that's basically my job. You know, if I'm on Facebook during the day, that's my job. You know, so you can't really complain that you get to spend all your time on the web or trying out new cool stuff on your phone, or, you know, getting an iPad as soon as it comes out because it's for work, you know, and playing all the games on the iPad and just having a really fun time with it, and also learning about all these new technologies and meeting cool people who are doing awesome things and changing the world. And so I've never really considered it work. I actually have the opposite. When I'm kind of away from that, I feel a little bit like, oh, I want to be online, I want to be connected, I wonder what all my online friends are doing, I wonder what's happening out there. You know, so for me it's the opposite. I get a little bit like anxious when I'm away from all that stuff, and I just really, really love, you know, being online, trying all these new applications, trying everything new that's happening.